Okay, so today we're going to be sketching and drawing this turkey, and we'll do a little bit of shading in between. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my blue pencil. That's a little bit too big, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, let me increase the resolution, image size. I'm increasing the resolution on my computer so the drawing will be a little bit cleaner. I'm going to start off sketching with the larger shape. So basic shapes drawing, we have rectangle, circle, triangle, and a cylinder. First thing I'm going to sketch first is the whole body. Here's the whole body. Okay, you can use a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or larger, and then just draw either vertical or horizontal. But after that circle, I have another partial oval going this way. Okay, so if this is the whole oval, I'm just sketching like that, but I'm only sketching a partial oval. Like so. Okay, now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to separate these three sections equally. Okay, so right over here, I'm going to sketch a line right through the middle here, and then on the bottom, I'm going to sketch that line just to separate. On the bottom of here, we have a little oval here, so I'm just going to place that oval right over here. Okay, now I'm going to move forward to the top right with the head. We have a rectangle shape over here. I'm just going to place that rectangle shape right over here. Okay, now when you're doing this, just make sure you have enough room on the left side of the paper, right side of the paper, the top of the paper, and the bottom of the paper. Okay, you don't want to draw and then all of a sudden run out of space. The legs, right over here, we see a rectangle. And I'm just going to place that rectangle right over here. And then the claws, we have another rectangle here. So I'm just going to place those rectangle over here. Okay, now I'm going to continue. This is pretty much all the shapes I need. I'm going to fix the head a little bit. We have a circle on top of that rectangle. I'm going to place that circle over here. Okay, and then we'll place two circles over here, which are these circles. So now that I have all the initial sketch done, I'm going to start tightening up the sketch. So that said, I'm going to reduce my opacity, or if you're drawing with traditional paper, grab your eraser and kind of like lighten up the pencil sketch, or if you're sketching lightly to begin with, then you don't need to erase. But I'm just going to erase it, lighten up a little bit. On the computer, I'm just going to lock it and create a new layer. And then I'm going to call this TIGH, tighten up, tighten sketch. Okay, tighten sketch, I'm just going to use a different color. Let's just use pink this time. Okay, so now I already have all the areas that I'm going to be drawing on top of. Everything's measured out nicely. When I'm tightening up the sketch, I'm looking at the curves to make sure I sketch in all the curves nicely. I'm going to make this image a little bit bigger. Move this to here. Okay, so right now I'm just going to start sketching the head. And then when I'm doing this, I'm sketching really lightly. I'm only focusing on curves. I already know where the head and neck is going to be. I also know where the wing is going to be. I'm looking at how much this curve and arc moves around. And I'm just mimicking that. This is easier to do when you're sketching everything out originally first. If you're going to do this before doing the initial sketch, it's going to be a little bit harder. I'm going to sketch the back of the body, focus on the curves. And then right over here, we have this side. Okay, this one rounds off this way. And then we have the tummy. This one curves outward, comes back in, comes back out, and then does a little circle here, and then the other circle right over here. And then the back of the wing, we have a little dent right over here. So I'm just going to also create that dent there. And we have another dent right over here. So it's equally spaced. We have a dent over there. I'm going to start sketching out the outside of the feather. Okay. And then I'm going to sketch this part, but at the same time, I'm looking at the negative space, this triangle over here. And then I'm going to place that triangle right over here. Make sure it's in the same angle. Now that I have that, I look at the original turkey drawing, the back feathers. I look at where these lines are pointing at. So these lines are pointing here. This is almost like 1-point perspective. So I just place a little dot there. When I place a dot there, I'll know that those feather lines is going to be pointing at this dot right over here. So we can sketch some of those lines here. I'm not too concerned about counting how many feathers today. I'm just going to sketch, make sure everything is in the right direction. Okay, now here, we look at the back of the turkey. We look at the contourness, if that's a word, the curve of these feathers. Okay, and then just like when we're drawing a cylinder, we have that cylinder. So I'm going to maintain the same arches over here. Okay. So right here, I'm going to maintain some of those arches, just sketch a few, make sure they're flowing the correct direction. There. Okay. You can sketch many of them if you like. Just make sure you're following the curves. Okay, I'm going to separate this wing over here. So this is that larger wing that's right over here. We're going to separate that right in the middle. Okay, and then there's another separation, this white part. We're going to separate that. Okay, and then here we're also going to do the same thing like what we did with the back of the turkey, the contour of the cylinder parts. So right over here, this curves this way and it slowly curves that way. Actually, if you look here, there's a separation over here too. So I'm just going to separate that as well. Okay, after separating that, I'm going to start sketching in some of the curve lines. I'm looking at these lines specifically, these lines, and I'm just going to draw those. So this one bulges out this way, this one centers, this one goes towards the left. Okay, so I'm going to find the middle. This one goes here, this one sketches this way, this way, this way. Okay, now these are directional lines for me when I start drawing more in detail. We have these smaller ones, these skinnier ones right over here. And then these white feathers that goes over here, they're going this direction. And then right on the back wing, we have a separation over here. So I'm just going to place that separation right over here. Okay, I'm going to erase that triangle. We don't need that triangle anymore. And then look at the direction that these feathers are going. We're just going to sketch these feathers like this. And then the back feather is going this direction. Okay, and then we're just going to go here and place those directional lines. Now, for the tummy of the turkey, we have these that goes this direction, almost like a pine cone. Okay, so right over here, we're just going to sketch those directional lines like this. And then on this side, we have a line that separates the white side and then the texture side. I'm just going to place that right over here. Okay, we have this going this direction, that going that the opposite direction. Okay, now we're going to move down to the, well, actually, we're going to work on the head first. So the head, we're going to find the placement of the eye. So usually when I'm looking for an eye of an animal, I'll have that circle right here. I'll draw a plus. Okay, so here's a circle. Here's a plus. That eye falls on the top right of that corner. So I'm going to place that eye right over here. Okay, we have the beak. The beak comes up to here. There is a little, I think that's called a wattle over here. And then we have the bottom part of the turkey. Okay, now we're going to work on the feet of the turkey. We have the two cylinders. We have one cylinder right over here. We're going to place that cylinder and this cylinder, and then keep in mind the negative space in between there. So that goes here. So right here, I'm going to adjust it, not match my initial sketch because I'm still looking at the reference photos. And then these guys, there's 3 talons, claws. We'll place one here. There's 1, 2, and then 3. And then on the other side, this one goes here. We're going to move this a little bit in there. So that's my tightening sketch. I'm going to erase lines that we don't need. Get rid of all those. And I'm looking at the reference photo. I'm pretty happy. I'm going to move the head a little bit lower. Okay, I don't like the sketch of my head. I'm just going to make that a little bit shorter. Okay, like this. Make it a little bit shorter. Okay, I'm using a computer, so what I'm doing is just transforming it, making sure everything's in the right place. Okay, I'm just going to do some quick adjustments, looking at it. One last go before I start drawing it. Okay, make sure everything's in the right place. Okay. Okay, now that I have everything I'm pretty happy with where it is. I'm going to separate some of this white section so it's easier for me to draw later. So this white section goes right around here. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to start drawing. I'm going to get rid of my initial sketch. I'm going to reduce the tightening sketch a little bit lighter so I can draw on top of it. And I'm going to be drawing with black, very light. Then I'm going to lock this layer, create a new layer. I'm going to call this the drawing layer. Okay, so you're going to be using pencil or charcoal or whatever medium that you're using. I'm going to be using that. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so I can draw the head first. Usually when I'm drawing, I do like drawing either things in front first, moving my way to the back. This turkey over here is just the wings and the tail. So I'm just going to focus on the head first. Okay, so here we're going to draw the head. I'm going to adjust this a little bit. And then we have the eye. So when I'm sketching, I do sketch really quickly. When I'm drawing, I do take my time. I'll draw those a little bit slower. So the head is a little bit bumpy. I'm just going to draw some of those squiggly lines first. I'm just drawing the outline of it. And I'm still looking at the reference photo. Never am I tracing over my sketches or my tightening sketch. Okay, I'm still constantly looking at the reference photo. Eventually, you want to draw where you can sketch things by looking at it, and then later on in the future you can kind of change some of your artwork by looking at a few reference photos and creating your artwork. Okay, we have that head there. Okay, next we're going to draw some of the we're going to work on the, let's see, the one in front. We're going to work on the tummy first because that's closer to the front of the turkey. Okay, so we're going to start from here. And we're just going to draw them in sections. Usually I would just draw one section at a time. And I can always go back and erase. And then some bumpiness here. And then don't draw this line straight across. Just give it some texture. And then once you're up to here, they're more changing directions. Okay, this one goes around here. Okay, and then we have the front of the turkey. And then we have the far right of the turkey. We draw that line. That. Okay, now I'm going to draw the wing part. Okay, we have one wing that goes here. It goes like this. We have this section. We have these sections. We're just going to draw them all in first. And then we'll work on the inside detail later. Okay. We add more here and just go all the way around. We'll come back to the other inside detail. Okay. And then we have these section of these wings. It's going to start small. And then this one goes larger. I'm already recording this, so I'll put this up on YouTube like immediately after I finish the class, Holly. Over here. And then right over here, we draw these lines. It doesn't have to look exactly like the reference photo. We're only going to spend maybe less than an hour to draw this. Okay. And then we have the way back feathers.
There seems to be a lag time between what you're saying and the actual changing of the picture.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, for me, I don't know about anybody else.
Maybe it's the internet. Yeah, I'll see if I can talk a little bit slower. Okay, so I'm going to work on the claw. Maybe I'll draw a little bit slower so it'll catch up. Okay, here's the talon, the claws. And we have this side. And there's the claw. And then we have the other side, a little bit shorter. And then we have the other leg. Oops. Like this and like this. Okay. I'm going to draw the back. Actually, let me go and add some of this line over here. And then we have the back. Let's draw them in sections. And then we'll go back and add the rest of the details later. Okay. This. Okay. And then I'm going to work on the outside feathers. Before I work on the outside feathers, I should work on these inner feathers on the back. So we already have that section out. Just draw those as rectangles. And you kind of arch them on the outside, going this direction. Okay, and then the outer feathers. Okay, almost like draw the rectangle, but on the outside, I'm gonna make it rounded. Maybe shake it a little bit, kind of like wobble it a little bit. Okay, we have a smaller feather here, and then it goes back to larger. I'm not quite sure why this one and this one is shorter. Maybe it's just how it grows. You have some broken, and then this one is smaller, and then this one's larger. Okay, so everything is pointing at the right direction. Okay, I'm going to work on the head a little bit, and then I'm going to work on the back feathering a little bit more. So some of the detailing, I'm just going to draw lines across. And try not to create a pattern. I'm jumping around. So I have some coming here, have some further out. And then as I'm going to the back, they do get larger. Okay, as long as they don't crisscross. You can draw stuff in between as long as they don't crisscross. Okay. And then we have these feathers. We're going to follow the pattern. Again, try not to crisscross. And I'm just going to break them up a little bit. And we have these ones. And then I'm going to continue as I get towards here. Those lines gets a little bit closer. So I'm going to draw them closer together and then a little bit shorter from one another. Again, I focus on not crisscrossing the lines. Just adding more lines in between, go in the same direction. We're going to follow our tightening sketch direction. Just draw those lines like this. Okay. After we have that, we're going to draw the darker lines on these feathers. I'm just going to darken up these lines. Okay. And then back here, in between these feathers, I'm just going to draw these lines, small little lines in between each one. Okay, I'm going to follow the direction of the feather a little bit. There's a question in the chat. Sorry, I'm late. No worries, Wally. Yeah, I'm already recording. Later on, after I'm recording, I'll upload it. Here we have this one. Okay, and then the bigger feathers. I'm just going to add a little bit of shakiness to it. And then we have this side. There's somewhat of a pattern, but not exactly like a machine-made pattern. Just drawing squiggly lines in between. And then we have this side. Okay, and then we have this feather over here. Just going to draw those lines. And then we have this one. Very easy. Just you're focusing on one section at a time, so it makes it not too daunting. It's much easier if you're just focusing on a section at a time. I'm going to make the back work on the back feather. I'm going to get the side of my pencil and then just fill this side really dark. And then I don't cross each line. I just fill in between the rectangles. Okay. If I cross each line, it's going to look kind of weird. So I like to draw a few and then kind of like separate it and not, so there's like a halo, like a little halo in between. Okay, we have that line using the side of the pencil so you can get a thicker lead. And then we're on this side, we're going to draw a line of same thing right over here. Use the side of the pencil so it's easier, so it's faster. Some of you will have a darker pencil lead that has a thicker tip. You can also use that. Okay. Now we're going to work on the bottom part of the turkey, and then we're going to do the same pattern, like all just squiggly lines like this. So you can use a darker pencil lead, or you can use the side of the pencil. Either way will work. I'm going to start off in the middle first. Let's draw thin lines. Okay, again, don't crisscross, just draw them each individually. And then on the bottom, I'll draw them thicker and more of them in between, closer together. Okay, you can have some of them overlap, but don't crisscross. If you crisscross, it's going to look like that. It looks messy. But if you draw them thicker and have them connect to each other, it's okay. Okay, and then up over here, we're going to draw those same pattern, but just go a little bit smaller. I'm going to start kind of creating a pattern like this. Okay, so from here, it's almost like drawing feathers. And then we have this one that goes here, and here, and there. Okay, and then I'm going to use a sharper pencil, and then we'll work on this area here. So a smaller, thinner pencil, and then we're going to follow that pattern. So same thing, we're just going to go here and follow that around the head. It's just drawing textures. And then as you get closer to the neck, like draw thinner lines and then smaller lines until it dissipates, until it disappears. So I'm going to go here and just fill in the rest. Like this. Okay. Now I'm going to draw some of the folds and wrinkles of the turkey's head. So same thing, we're just doing textures, just doing little bumps, kind of like drawing trees. If you're drawing trees, little bumps like that, I'm going to go ahead and add little textures. Okay, all the way to the beak. And we're going to fill in his eyes. We're going to draw one of the eyes. And then on the side, it's just little bumps, almost like little raindrops. If you're painting raindrops on a leaf, just paint those little loops. And as you get towards the bottom, those little raindrops become bigger raindrops. They start becoming larger. Okay. You can make some go into a different direction. And then we have this larger fold over here. Okay, and then we'll add some of those little raindrops, and then around the eye a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go to this area, the front of the turkey. Then we're going to draw I'm going to get a sharp pencil, a really thin line, just draw lines that contours around this area. Okay, and then on the opposite side, I'm going to have those lines contour this direction. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to jump around. Okay, so this brown section over here, not brown, but kind of yellowish and yellow and black. I'm just going to draw lines on each square, almost like drawing a zebra. So I'm just going to draw this line, squiggly line all around here. Just focus on one section at a time. So with drawing, it's just looking at patterns from the reference photo and then just following that pattern, and then you're creating it. Okay, so when I look at the back of the tail, I see the line as wobbliness and I see it going into this direction. I don't see it arcing this way, or I don't see it arcing that way. I see it kind of like squiggly lines like this. And then when I draw it, I just make up my own squiggly lines. Okay, so for those of you who are in the class who's drawing along with me, you can make some, you can use the side of the pencil, you can use the tip of the pencil. You can press down hard or press down light. Once we're done with all these lines, we're going to go in there later on and we'll do some shading on top. We're just going to do like the side of the pencil and very lightly do a little bit of shading and smudging. Gonna add a few more lines in between here, one section at a time. Okay, now on the inner tail, like at this part of the tail, we're gonna get a sharper pencil. If you have a lead pencil, even better, it'll be easier. Sometimes you're drawing with your pencil sideways, and then your pencil will automatically be really fine tip. If not, just go sharpen your pencil. A lot of times I'm drawing with pencil. I actually have a whole bunch of pencils. Like, let me show. I'll have a whole bunch of pencils right next to me, and then a bunch of them, they're all sharpened. And then as one gets dull, I just pick up another one. So I don't spend time sharpening pencils as I'm drawing. When I'm done drawing, and then I have free time, then I'll sharpen up all those pencils. But I'll have regular pencils that's all sharp when I'm beginning to draw. So if one gets dull, I just put that away and then work on another one. Okay, we're going to continue one section at a time. And this is therapeutic. This doesn't seem like a task to me. This is very comforting as I'm drawing this. Okay, I'm going to look back at the reference photo, and then I'm going to use a thicker pencil lead. You can grab a pencil lead that's darker, or just use one that's a little bit more dull. And I'm going to fill in some of the insides of this area. Okay, I'm going to look at the reference photo to see which side is darkest. This side is darker than the top, so I'm just going to go in here and add some darker lines in on closer to the wing area. I'm just going to add lines like this. So right now we're just drawing a lot of texture lines, and it's starting to look like a turkey by just adding little lines. And this isn't really that hard. It's just sectioning off the different sections of the turkey and then just adding those lines in between. And then I'm going to make the inside closest to the wing a little bit darker, because I want the wing to kind of be noticeable, almost like how I would use my hand and demonstrate the shadows from one side and the other side, depending on a light source. Even if there's a light source from which direction, it'll be darker here. Same with this side. I'm going to go in here and darken up this area. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the reference photo. I'm choosing all the areas that's really dark, and I'm going in there using the side of my pencil. I'm just adding more pencil lead just to darken up those areas. Okay, so this side of the wing is darker. I'm going to add a little bit more here. Okay, just check the sections that's kind of like squares over here. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more up here. Okay, and then some in between here. I'll break some of the lines up. As I'm doing this, I'm not falling into a pattern. I'm just making each one kind of look unique in a way. Okay, and then we're gonna work on some here. This area is really dark over here, so I'm just going to add a little bit more darker value here. I'm also going to add thin lines behind the head because I want the head to stick forward. Right now, my drawing over here, it looks kind of flat. So I'm going to use my pencil and then just draw more thin lines following the direction of the other lines. This way, it'll help push the head out. Okay, and then back here, this area, I'm going to add a little bit more darker values. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of my Titan sketch. I don't need to see that anymore. And then I'm going to use my pencil and start adding a little bit of details. So a really sharp pencil and just draw a few lines. This. Draw a few lines in here. Draw a few lines. Make sure it's pointing in the right direction. We don't want this one to point that direction. We don't want to point this direction. We want it to point towards the center of the tail. If some of those lines go outside of the rectangle, that's okay. It gives it textures like these little areas. Okay, I'm gonna add some here, and also outside of here, and here. You add a few more. Okay. So now I'm just going to look around to see what other areas I can add a little bit more blacks. So I feel like the back of the turkey, I can add, I can benefit from adding more blacks in there. So I'll start adding in little rectangles by this. If you're using your pencil and you're holding it in an angle, you can actually draw lines that looks like little rectangles. Okay, little rectangles here, here. I'm going to add some more details on the turkey. So just thicken up some of the lines. I'll try again not to crisscross, or I'm looking around the areas that I can add more without drawing over it. Yeah, I'm just drawing in the white areas. Okay, underneath the neck, I'm just add a little darker line. And there, we have this. So now I'm pretty happy with the turkey. Okay, I'm gonna add a few more lines in between these feathers. I'm gonna add a few more black lines here and a few more black lines here. Now I'm happy with my drawing. I'm gonna start shading it with this side of my pencil. I'm gonna go on Photoshop and create another layer. I'm gonna lock this layer, and this one I'm gonna call it deep shading. Okay, I'm gonna put the shading layer under my draw layer. Okay, so now we're just gonna be doing this in black and white, so you can use a gray wash if you like. If you're doing gray wash, you can use if you drew this in ink, like what I'm doing here, I drew this in ink, you can do a gray wash. Gray wash is mixing water, controlling how much water you're using and how much ink. But for most of the people who are watching this, you're drawing in pencil. So we're just going to use pencil and then smudging. So I'm going to start testing out the color of my grays. Grab a bigger gray. So this gray looks okay to me. I'm going to start adding grays on this area. And then adding grays on the bottom. I'm looking at all the darkest areas, and with the side of my pencil, I'm just adding some grays. Okay. You can always add more. And then the back of the turkey, we're going to do the same. Grays closest to the wing, and then a little bit up here, and then we'll do some smudging later. Okay. On the back of the tail, we're going to add a little bit of grays. I'm going to lighten up my grays a little bit. That's not too dark. We'll do some grays over here. So I'm just using the side of my pencil very lightly, just adding that. Okay. And then I'm going to erase towards the white area, and then some grays over here. And then when we look at this, we'll notice that the center of each of these rectangles is darker. So with the same grays, I'm just going to add a little bit more in the center. Okay. Adding here, adding more here, and then there. So I'm using Photoshop. Some of you may know how to use Photoshop. I'm just creating different layers to draw this. But if you're drawing with pencil or crayon with ink, it's the same techniques, the same method that I'm teaching you guys. It's just knowing which tools to use and then just using it accordingly. I'm going to make my grays here a little bit lighter for this part of the wing. Okay, I'm just going to paint each one. And then after smudging, usually I'll go back in there and I'll look at the overall image to make sure if I need areas that's a little bit darker. So here, and then now I'm going to work on the bottom of the feet, add some shadows there, the legs, always a heavier shadow directly underneath. So I add more pencil lead, and then on each of the toes, claws, talons, whatever you like to call it, I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, I'm also going to add some shadows around the neck. So right here, when we look at the neck and the head, we don't see black, we don't see yellows. All we see is red and blue. So with the red, I'm just going to add grays to the red areas. Okay, red to the gray areas. Okay, a little bit on the beak, a little bit on the top of the head. And then I see that there's some blues on around the eye. So I'm going to add some blues. So we'll notice that this is the same grays. So after I added eyes, I'm just going to go back to the red area and add a little bit more grays. Okay. Okay, and then this part of the neck thing, the wattle. And then a little bit of grays over here. So now that I have a little bit of gray values, I'm going to start using a Q-tip or a smudger, or if you don't have any of those, just use your hand and then just slightly smudge it so it blends a little bit better. So I'm going to add a little bit darker. So here's my smudger. Then I'm going to control this and just soften it up a little bit. Okay. It's faster since I'm using a computer. If you do it by hand, just take your time. I'm going to not press too hard on it so I don't over smudge. And what I'm doing is I'm just softening up every line that has a harsh line, or if there's areas that has like white specks of pencil lead, and I'm just smudging it so that pencil lead disappears. Here, can do some more smudging to soften up here, and then also the head. Some light smudging, very lightly. Okay, on the front of the turkey. Okay, and then the leg. I'm going to go back to the leg and draw some more details on the leg. The leg looks kind of plain to me. So I'm going to go back to my drawing. I'm going to grab my sharp pencil head. Okay. Sharpen up my pencil, get a really fine tip, and then draw in some details of the leg over here. So on the leg, we have this texture. And then this one goes this side. And then we same with the other side, we have this one. We'll draw some of those. And then here, and then here. Okay. Sometimes when I'm smudging and shading, some of the lines goes out. It's okay if some of your smudging line goes out. You can always go back and erase it. Okay, so that's I just finished drawing that one. Go back to my shading. Now, after shading and smudging, I'm going to go and look at the reference photo to see if there's any areas that I can add more values. This black value over here, there's a little bit of yellow brownish on the outside that's going to the white. So now that I see that, I'm going to go there and add a little bit of a light gray to the edge right around here, just a little bit. And then I'll come back and I'll smudge it later. This right over here. Yeah. Okay. After I do that, I'll get my smudger and I'll smudge outwards. I'll smudge outwards into the white. Smudge outwards into the white. Okay. Now I look at the turkey. I'm going to grab my eraser and then kind of lighten up some of the areas around the eye. Okay, lighten up, erase that one. That doesn't belong there. And then here, I'm going to grab darker pencil lead and then darken up some of these other areas. Okay, darken up here, darken up a little bit more, darken up the bottom a little bit more. After darken up over here, darken up behind the head a little bit, and darken up these wings over here. I'm going to darken up this side, and then now I'm going to smudge again, just to soften up those areas that I darkened up a little bit. So smudge to soften it. Okay, and then same with these wings. I mean, these feathers here, these back feathers, just like really small feathering. I'm gonna just, instead of feathering it, drawing thin lines, I'm just gonna use grays. Here's the grays. Add a little bit of grays in here. There. Okay. There. Now I'm just gonna add a little bit of texture on the ground, so it looks like the turkey is standing somewhere. Just using the smudger that you have, or the Q-tip that has some pencil lead, or in my case, I'm just going to add a little bit of light tech colors on the bottom for the floor. Too dark. I don't want it to be that dark. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. Okay. Just be careful as you're drawing closer to the turkey. And then I'm just gonna have a horizon line like right over there. Okay. Closer to the turkey would be darker, so I add a little bit more. I'll just smudge in a little bit more. Darker around here, darker around here. And make it just a little bit darker so it's faster. It's taking too long right here. Okay. Yeah, closer to the turkey, a little bit more shadows. And then now I'm going to take the smudger, and then I'm just going to soften up all those backgrounds so it doesn't have that harsh line over here. Just soften it up a little bit. Let me do this a little quickly. Reduce my pressure so it doesn't smudge too much. Okay, so now it's a little bit softer. Okay, and after that, I'm just going to go and use the pencil again, a sharper pencil where I'm not smudging, and just draw a little bit of a random textures. I'm going to go on the drawing layer. Make sure my pencil is really dark. Okay. Dark pencil and very thin lines. Brush, pencil. Just draw some little dots like this. Little rocks. Okay, and then just a little bit more on closer to the body of the chicken, turkey. Okay, so here, just a little bit. And we're just going to draw maybe a line here, two separate. We're not going to draw all those rocks in the background. You could draw the rocks in the background if you want. I'm just, if we drew the rocks, but I'm just going to draw this over here. Okay. Like this, and just add more. And then once you're done, all you have to do is just sign your name. Sign your name. Just sign my name over here. So there you go. That's how I draw the turkey using this reference photo. And I'm gonna show you all the different things that we've done. The first thing we did was we sketched it, which is this right here. We started out with this initial sketch, and then we tightened up the sketch, which is this. After tightening up the sketch, we drew it, and this is the drawing, and then the shading on top of it. So without the drawing, the shading is just all the smudging over here like that. So these were all the steps that we went through.